Hey folks, Dr. Mike Israetel here for Renaissance Periodization, continuing a grand tour of the Renaissance Diet 2.0 book, which is linked in the description. Chapter 8, Hunger Management. So it's called Hunger Management. You think maybe if it's a diet book, it would just be called Hunger Reduction. But we'll get to that in just a bit. So why is hunger a big deal? Here's the get to that in just a bit part. Hunger can be a real big problem when you're trying to lose fat and you have to eat less and less food throughout the course of the diet. Now, that's pretty obvious. We'll get to all that in just a second. The slightly less obvious part is for the much smaller minority of folks who are gaining weight intentionally, eating mostly healthy and performance-enhancing foods, which means not a ton of junk food, and are trying to get more muscle. The thing is, if you eat a lot for a while, your hunger actually becomes an impediment because it's so low and so small, you kind of have to start stuffing yourself, and that can be really hard. Now, of course, clearly, if we can reduce hunger when we're dieting to lose fat, that's also a huge benefit. That's why this chapter is called Hunger Management, because there's strategies in it to both increase your hunger if you need to pound more food, so to speak, to get in the calories to get bigger, or if you're trying to get smaller, there are definitely strategies in there to make your hunger less of a thing so that you can continue to diet, lose fat, get the results, so on and so forth. So, particularly for the fat loss side, why is hunger such a big deal? Number one is adherence. The vast majority of people that have trouble with diets, at one point or another, some of that trouble is going to be hunger related. Right? Diets are hard because you don't get to eat what you want. And a lot of times, because they make you hungry. And if you're hungry, at some point you're just going to slip up, so to speak, and cheat, so to speak, and go over on calories. And some people, will go over on calories out of sheer boredom. It's a little bit less of a defensible thing. It's like, geez, can't you just commit to it? Okay, fine. But when you start to get hungry, it's real hard to stick to a diet because there's a sort of guttural, ancestral response, not sort of, it really is ancestral, pushing you to try to consume as much food as is needed to get your body weight back in the normal range, which your body thinks is what you used to weigh all the time. So if you're trying to make a change for the better and lose some fat, hunger kicks in. The lower you go in body fat and the more weight you lose from what your body's used to over the last several months or years, the more hunger gets turned up and the bigger the problem is. Here's the thing. Let's say that you will yourself through it and you don't really reduce your hunger, you just kind of deal with it. So adherence is not a problem. First of all, 3 cheers for you, that's a good thing. However, the battle isn't over. You could say, well, if I can just willpower through it, I don't need anti-hunger strategies. You can still benefit from them. Here's how. The amount of willpower that it takes to deal with hunger, right? You're hungry, you're pissed, and you got to just, whatever, I'm just going to do this, causes stress. Stress will make you lose muscle. It'll hormonally make fat loss more difficult. It'll make your training less productive and let you train less hard and so on and so forth. Stress is real bad. It's also really bad for your health. But even just the performance and body composition side, stress is bad in almost every single way you could measure. Not acute stress from exercise and hard training, chronic stress. And you will have chronic stress if you're hungry all the time. So that's a bad deal. Next one is sleep. If you're hungry, some of you folks may very well remember these times, dieting, you're so hungry that you have trouble sleeping. Or you wake up in the middle of the night, super starving, you want to eat food, but you can't. Soon as you get hungry enough, your sleep quality and quantity may be impacted. And sleep is huge to the fat burning process. So maybe if we found ways to reduce our hunger when we needed to and potentially increase it when we need to, we could deal with a lot of these problems and dieting will be that much better. Well, let's get to the point here. What are the ways in which we can modulate hunger? Quick grand tour. All the explanations and deep insight are in the book, which is linked in the description. So first strategy is calorie density. We're going to use the example here in this video of strategies that reduce hunger. If you want strategies that expand hunger, those are found in the book as well. Calorie density. If you eat a salad that is the size of a huge bowl, it's not very calorie dense. Let's say it has 1,000 calories in it. You eat it and it fills you up like crazy because it's a ton of food with, certain decent amount of calories, and you'll just be full and just not hungry at all, and probably for hours and hours you're like, oh my God, it's difficult to eat this much food. On the other hand, if you have a shake, some fries, and a cheeseburger, that 1,000 calories, that's just probably the cheeseburger alone. right? It goes in super quick, and all of a sudden you're like, I could eat more, right? Or a couple hours later, you're like, I can definitely eat more. So if you focus on more calorie-dense foods, which tend to be the less processed kind, especially green veggies, fruits and whole grains for your carbs, if you focus on those more, you can actually get more bang for the buck, hunger-wise, being full-wise. Next up is the satiety index, or a concept called FPRH, Food Palatability Reward Hypothesis. It's a really, really awesome idea. And basically what it says, and this is a little bit intellectual, but bear with me, if you eat lots of tasty foods, you want to eat more tasty foods, right? So if it's basically summed up in that slogan for the chips commercials back in the 90s, you can't eat just one. Man, it really is tough to eat just one potato chip. Why? Because you get the one potato chip, it hits every single taste bud. It's amazing, right? Chips taste good, and you want another one, right? The question is, how many chips can you eat until you get full? It's a certain number for everyone. It's a pretty high number. You can get through a whole bag and be like, oops, right? And that's thousands of calories right there. What about like just broccoli florets? How many of those can you ever, a friend gives you broccoli floret, you're like, oh my God, this is so delicious, I just can't stop eating them. Not really, right? Much lower chance of that. So here's the thing, as you go through a diet, you're going to want to crave these tasty, super high calorie foods that are going to want you to eat more food. Having half a cheeseburger is like an exercise in torture, right? All you want is the other half and then 3 or 4 other halves after that. But if you eat food that's not disgusting, but just not amazing, as the diet gets really gnarly and you get really hungry, it's a good idea and it actually works. If you have some oatmeal and some chicken and some broccoli, you're going to eat it because you're hungry, and then you're going to be done, and people are going to be like, you just want more of that, and you're starving. You're like, not really, right? But if you eat like a quarter of a cheeseburger and half of a shake and 2 fries, which is a calorie equivalent of like a good plate of chicken and oatmeal, you're going to just want way more of that. So that's going to be the feedback loop. Turns out foods are ranked by how much they fill you up or how much hungrier they make you. The satiety index, it's available online. It's available in the book, so give that a shot. Next one is protein intake. Super simple. The more protein you eat in your diet, the less hunger you experience. So as you get deeper into a diet, you can consider increasing your protein intake in the context of keeping your calories in check. So don't just add protein, you got to subtract fat and or carbs, but it's usually worth the trade-off to a point. Timing bias. This is really simple. I'm going to give one example. There's others in the book. If you're really not a morning person, you don't really like to eat a lot in the morning, and you're on a fat loss diet, so you don't get to eat everything you want, what's the point of waking up and stuffing yourself with oats and turkey bacon and eggs? You hate eating breakfast. You're like, oh my God, this is like work. Only to take those calories, use them for breakfast, which is totally fine, and then in the evening, you have like a little protein shake and you're starving your brains off because you usually like to eat more in the evening. So if you happen to be a morning person, just eat a little less in the morning. Maybe start the morning with a protein shake. Save most of your food for the evening. That way, you get the same number of calories through the day, identical weight loss, almost exactly the same body composition changes in performance, except you just eat when you're hungriest and everything fits super well. Super simple idea. Fiber. The more fiber you eat, the less hungry you are, which is why eating a diet high in veggies, fruits, and whole grains, great idea, especially when you're dieting to lose fat. Liquid calories. In the book's discussion about how to get in a ton of calories when you're trying to gain weight, liquid calories are a huge weapon in the sense that you take them in super easily, they don't make you feel super full, and you're pretty hungry shortly thereafter. Now, if that's a good strategy to gain weight, to make hunger higher or potentially not depress it as much, boy, is that a really bad strategy for fat loss, right? So if you're on a diet and you're losing a lot of fat and you're cutting your calories a lot, maybe lower how many shakes you have through the day. Maybe if you're drinking juices and sodas, replace those carbohydrates in the juice with food. Like instead of drinking a glass of orange juice, which you can drink just like it wasn't even there, eat an orange instead. Heck, for a regular glass of orange juice, that's like 2 or 3 oranges. 2 or 3, you ever eat 3 oranges in a row? You're like, I'm just tired of chewing this stuff, and you're going to be full for a long time. So as you get deeper into a diet for fat loss, make sure you have less liquid calories coming in and more solid food calories. Another cool trick, very related, is if you sit down at a dinner table. And this is good for folks who are going out to eat and maybe don't have an exact set macro plan, but even if they do, during a diet, what you do is you sit down and you're about to have some food and you're like, ooh, I really don't want to overdo it. Drink one tall glass of water or Diet Coke or something, a lot of fluid, right away. And what you do is actually expand the stomach, and all of a sudden your stomach's like, I guess we're not as hungry as we thought. And then if you eat a little bit more slowly, or you wait some minutes after drinking the fluid, there's a delay effect too, which helps you not overeat a ton. On the other hand, if you're trying to gain weight, as soon as the food arrives, don't waste your precious time drinking non-caloric liquids. So instead of that, you want to sip an orange juice with the meal, and you want to eat not super fast that you choke or something, but get to it, because your stomach after 20, 30, 40 minutes, your gastrointestinal tract is like, hey, I think we're getting kind of full. If you can outpace that a little bit, you can stuff yourself and gain a lot of calories. Opposite is true for when you're fat loss dieting. So one thing you don't want to do is when you sit down to eat a meal, not have any liquids and rush to eat the food. If you're trying to lose fat and you're trying to get the most anti-hunger bang for the buck out of every meal, drink a good deal of fluid before you start, and especially slow down your eating just a bit. I think things will work out a little bit better for you. Last but not least, stimulants really do work. So if you're a caffeine user and you like your coffee, so on and so forth, Diet Cokes, if you have a few more of them throughout the day, they usually depress appetite. Careful though, because you don't want to use them too close to sleep time, interfere with sleep, all sorts of bad things happen. Here's the deal. What are you going to do as far as using these strategies? Do you just, as soon as you start a fat loss diet, do you just use every single one of these and you're like, okay, anti-hunger all the way, like I'm eating food that's not that tasty, it's no liquid meals, check every box? Absolutely not, because when you just start a diet, your hunger's not that crazy. So what you want to do instead is when you start a diet and you're not hungry, all is well, keep eating relatively normally, healthy, balanced, so on and so forth. As you start to notice that hunger is becoming a problem, start interjecting a couple of these strategies to some extent, not all out, right? So maybe like reduce some of your liquid calories and maybe eat a little bit more protein and maybe time your food a little bit more to when you're hungry and not to when you're not. And the hunger will sort of go away, and then as the diet keeps going, it'll come back a little stronger. Then use more and more of these strategies. This is what we call climbing or going down the hedonic staircase, right? You don't ever want food to become super duper pleasurable and desirable when you're on a fat loss diet, right? Because then you'll just overeat and it'll be a real bad deal. On the other hand, when you're trying to gain weight, you don't ever want food to be so chore-like that you just stop eating, like, I'm done, I can't eat anymore, right? So you want to make sure that food pleasure is relatively even. As you get hungrier, you use anti-hunger strategies and food pleasure stays more or less even. And as you try to gain weight on purpose, you use more pro-hunger strategies as hunger tries to drop off. Use those strategies. If you want more details, they're in the book, Chapter 8. Folks, I'll see you next time for Chapter 9.